Hi there, folks. How are you doing? I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I'm offering this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. It's titled, There is Always Time to Laugh and Cry. You don't have to wipe the tears from your eye. So I'd like to invite us just to still ourselves together in silence and invite a loving presence to be here amongst us and to awaken from deep, deep within us all. I have lit the flame of freedom in this cup of belonging, understanding, acceptance, and love. Let's be as we truly are in this moment. Let's be as we truly are. Let us know that we are wanted, needed, and loved, that we are welcomed by the spirit of love, that spirit of openness, in the spirit of reverence. In this time and in this space, may we revere God, revere life, revere one another, revere ourselves. May we find peace, rest, comfort, and challenge, and meaning despite our real troubles in life. May we know that we are loved, that we are accepted and encouraged to be all that we were born to be. Know that we are loved as we are and wholly accepted as we are, exactly as we are, no matter who we are, no matter where we have been. We are wanted wholly and we are accepted and loved. May we know that the Spirit that lives to set us free wants us to know that we are wanted, needed, and loved as we are, exactly as we are, wholly in this moment. May we know that. Amen. This last Tuesday, the 2nd of November, was All Souls Day. All Souls Day is a time to remember those that we have loved and that we have lost, those souls who touched our lives in so many ways. 2nd November is always a difficult day for me personally, not least because it was on the 2nd of November 2006 that I experienced what has been the most significant loss of my life. A soul that reawakened a dying love in me. He died that day. And this last Tuesday morning, I refelt that feeling whilst experiencing shared silence with friends in meditation as the sun rose very early that morning. Later that day, I spent time working on the service that this devotion has come from, but also time in conversation with many dear friends, actually, new friends and old friends. I also had a rather long overdue conversation with my mum. She's been quite worried of late as her beloved Auntie Sheila is in Pinderfields Hospital on a COVID ward on a ventilator. She's not well. And of course, my mum has also many other worries that mothers carry with them, not least for myself, one of her sons, but her children, her grandchildren, and others in her life. It was good to talk, to love, to care. And later that day in the afternoon, when I needed it the most, I was not in the best of moods. I was okay. I was just feeling sad. But along came a message from a dear, dear old friend. It began with an apology for her lateness, it seems. But what she did was, with a lovely message, she sent a couple of pictures of myself with her, another picture with her dearest friend and one of my dearest friends. Pictures from a long, long time ago when we were very, very young. A few weeks previously, I had requested, at the time I was turning 50, I'd requested if friends would share pictures and memories. So this, even though it came late, came at just the perfect moment as I recalled and relived so many other memories. It brought tears to my eyes, I have to say that. But they were tears of joy as much as tears of sadness. In fact, they were mainly tears of joy, despite real sadness. It brought a broad, beaming smile to my face, and I chuckled with laughter. No small amount of laughter, I have to say. It reminded me of what it means to truly live life as life actually is, really. For we must accept all the blessings and curses of choosing life. To paraphrase good old Moses, of course, blessings of curses. You can't have one without the other. That morning, I'd met another friend. It was a bit of a how I worked that day. I produced loads of work, and yet I seem to be talking to people all day long. It's strange how this works, really. Creates more space, perhaps. But I met another friend for coffee, and we've been trying to meet for weeks, but things just kept on getting in the way. We shared with each other about grief, but also the joy of living. My friend is coming up to the first anniversary of the loss of his nephew, and he's going to be spending a few days with his brother, whose son it was who died last year. I shared how the significance of the first anniversary and how it can be very, very difficult, perhaps sometimes the most difficult time, really. We shared a deep and rich conversation. I'm blessed, really. My life is filled with such things. The time we shared together was a time of sorrow, and yet, even in the sorrow, there was a strange joy, a joy that comes in the connection. And of course, as is always the case, no small amount of laughter. Sometimes it echoes through these buildings. And of course, we were interrupted several times by people we knew who just came to say hello, which again, of course, brought even more laughter, spontaneous laughter. I can't go anywhere, me. I then returned to my office, and as I walked up the hill, Ecclesiastes was singing in my heart those familiar words, as they did all day long, really. Ecclesiastes always touches that deep place in the soul of me, the place of joy and the place of sorrow too. The words that are fitting for all seasons, but I think even more so in the autumn, and I would suspect especially November. November, of course, is the season of remembrance. Ecclesiastes speaks the truth of truth, that whatever we are feeling or experiencing at the moment is always fleeting, and that this too shall pass. That nothing is permanent in life, that life is forever changing, and however you feel about a situation right now, you could feel very differently about it soon. In fact, you will. And of course, that's both good news and it's bad news too, you know. Well, actually, that's just reality. Neither good nor bad, really. Why do we decide what's good and what's bad in life? Separate life into good and bad when it's life itself. You can't separate life. I feel like we can't separate aspects of our humanity. Why do we do this to ourselves? To decide what is good and what is bad, or even worse, why do we allow other people to decide what is good or bad about our wholeness? That can't be right. We should not deny any experience, any aspect of who we are, in order for us to know the true joy and blessings of living. There is a time and a place for everything under the sun. We should not deny this, for if we deny this, we deny our full humanity. That's no good. It doesn't help you and it doesn't help anybody else. The All Soul service that night was beautiful. There were one or two. There was even a man who turned up almost by accident. And he was just where he needed to be. He saw the lights were on in the building as he drove past. And he called in. He needed to call in. And what he shared touched all our hearts. But the whole service touched those parts that needed to be touched. It was wonderful to be together with others to share in this. November is a season of remembrance in so many ways. At this time, we remember those who have touched our lives in deep and special ways. Yes, we remember those who are no longer with us, but it is also important to remember those who are still with us too. And those two pictures of my dear, dear old friends help me to remember this too. Actually, if truth be told, over the last few months, I've had the gift of reconnecting with so many, many dear friends. It's been very special as my life has been blessed again and again and again by tears of pain and tears of laughter too. You don't get one without the other. But they're signs of life, that we're alive, that we're feeling alive, that we're feeling life. In this season of remembrance, tears come for so many reasons. Some of the reasons are very obvious to us. Tears of grief, say. That said, they can come for other reasons too. And I was thinking about this when I remembered a rather wonderful, wonderful piece called Tears by Frederick Buchner. I'll share it with you. Tears by Frederick Buchner. They say that whenever the great Protestant theologian Paul Tillich went to the beach, he would pile up a mound of sand and sit on it, gazing out at the ocean with tears running down his cheeks. One wonders what there was about it that moved him so. The beauty and the power of it, the inexpressible mystery of it, the futility of all those waves endlessly flowing in and ebbing out again. The sense that it was out of the ocean that life originally came, and that when life finally ends, it's the ocean that will still remain. Who knows? Maybe it was when he looked at the ocean that he caught a glimpse of the one he was praying to. Maybe what made him weep was how vast and overwhelming it was, and yet at the same time as near as the breath of his nostrils, as salty as his own tears. Maybe. It's not so far away, is it? It's here now. It's here now. Who knows exactly why tears come? And does it matter? I don't think it matters why. Tears, though, are precious sacraments, every single one of them. And they're more than just water that leaks from our eyes. Tears are more than that. Emotional tears help to cleanse us. Actually, tears form from a reaction to feelings, to emotion felt. The composition of such tears is very different from those tears that come from, say, cutting onions, or if we get something in our eye or an irritation in our eye when we rub our eyes. We get physical tears, but they're not the same. We cry not because there is something wrong with our eyes. That's not why tears come. Emotional tears, they don't come to clean the eye. But it is true that tears created from these emotions contain more toxins than the other kind. Similar to what sweat does, really. So in truth, they do actually help to cleanse the body. And they also contain leucine ecophthalin, which is a type of opiate, actually. In our tears, it's an opiate. So tears created from felt emotion, they do cleanse us in a way, but they also ease us too. And we feel that in our being, don't we? That sense of something. As I was thinking about tears, and not just tears of sorrow, but all kinds of tears, really, emotional tears, I mean, it came to mind something else I recently came across. Wonderful, interesting piece, this. It's a very interesting view on tears, really, I suppose. A creative view. Another poem by Yehuda Amichai called Going On Together. Above the hotel gate I saw a sign, International Conference on Inflammation of the Eye, for those who have cried too much or not cried enough. All of them with name tags on their lapels, like temporary nameplates in a cemetery or markers in a botanical garden. They approach one another as if sniffing, as if checking. Who are you? Where are you from? And when was the last time you cried? The subject of the morning session is sobbing, the end of crying or the way it begins. Sobbing as a soul stuttering and grief stones. Sobbing as a valve or a loop that links cry to cry. A loop that unravels easily like a hair ribbon. And the crying, hair that fans out in profusion, glorious, or a loop that pulls into an impossible knot. Sobbing like an oath, a testimony, a cure. Back in their cubicles, the women translators are busy translating fate to fate, cry to cry. At night they come home, scrub the words from their lips, and with sobs of happiness they start loving, their eyes aflame with joy. An interesting observation on tears and sobbing, I suppose. What do you think of that? But there's something sacred in these tears, I'm sure of that. They're a sacrament to being alive, if you like. And in ancient times, tears were considered sacred. So much so that they were stored in bottle-like containers called lacrimatories. And they're mentioned actually in the 56th Psalm of David, verse 8, as he's praying to God. This is the Psalm. Thou tellest my wanderings, put thou my tears into thy bottle. Are they not in thy book? In ancient Rome, mourners filled small tear bottles or cups with tears and placed them in tombs as a symbol of respect for the departed. The volume of tears attested to the status of the deceased individual. Mourners were recruited and paid for the specific purpose of producing and collecting tears for these containers. You find lacrimatories in museums throughout the world, actually. And practically they reappeared during the 19th century, when, really at the time when many of our modern customs around grief and mourning were established. Tear bottles were made with special openings to collect the tears, and when the tears evaporated, it was thought that the appropriate period of mourning was now over. So they served a practical purpose too. It would seem that the practice has re-emerged too in recent years. You can have your own tear cup made by a specialist craftsperson, and as well, you can have a tear enclosed in a glass necklace. People get involved in these things when there's money to be made, isn't there, don't they? Now, I'm not sure really what I think about all this. I wouldn't want to store and enclose something as sacred as a tear shed from the deepest aspect of my humanity. I'm not sure I like that idea. It's a bit like the butterfly collector who pins the butterfly down, wants to understand the butterfly, so he pins it to a board. But that's not what a butterfly is. A butterfly is a butterfly when it lives for a short time in a garden and flies around. Pinning it down, it doesn't teach you what a butterfly is. And just as a tear is precious as it is a spontaneous reaction to a lived emotion. So once we store these things, we kind of kill their meaning, don't we? You can't freeze a moment. The moment's beauty is in the lived experience. That said, mementos, like photographs, say, for instance, can help us reconnect to an experience that we shared with a loved one. So there is value in, just like those two pictures that were sent to me this week. It's brought so much sacred energy out and alive, so much emotion. So it's not that they don't have their uses. You can't store up a moment. It just doesn't work like that. You can't contain a moment, but you can reignite a memory. I suppose that's what I mean. Like I say, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about such things, really, as teacups and things like teacups. I wonder what you think. I'd like to hear, really. Be good to hear from you. Tears, of course, are not always about sadness. There are tears of joy, too. And there are other expressions of emotion as well as tears and laughter, aren't there? Like laughter. Laughter is a wonderful emotion, a spontaneous emotion. You can't store up laughter, can you? You can't enclose it, really. Well, I suppose there's canned laughter, so that kind of, yeah, I suppose there is that. But is there anything more artificial and soulless as canned laughter? Can you think of anything more artificial than that? And fake laughter, that doesn't work either. You can't just make yourself laugh. Try tickling yourself later. See if you can make yourself laugh by tickling yourself. I bet you can't do it. It's much more fun if you've got somebody else to do it, but I'll leave that to you. It's funny though, people do things like Zen laughter groups. It's funny if you put the word Zen at the beginning of something, somehow it gives it a spiritual nature, doesn't it? No, these things can't work, surely. They're not real. Laughter for me should always be spontaneous, otherwise it's just not real. Laughter for me is just as sacred as any tear too. It's another expression of real emotion. And don't we recognise each other through our laughter? People know me by my laughter. I know that. And you know what? I've shared so much laughter of late with so many dear old friends. Shared so many sacred moments. It has been beautiful. And it's so important, isn't it, laughter? And I just want to share a kind of amusing, maybe it's a bit peculiar, poem with you by Ron Cortish called Bad News About My Vocation. I remember how the upper crust in my hometown pronounced it caramel, 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 which is correct, I guess, but everybody else it was caramel, 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 which led to the misconception about the order of the Carmelites. I imagine they served God by heating sugar at about 170 degrees centigrade, then adding milk and butter and vanilla essence while they listened to the radio. I thought I could do that. I could wear the white shirt and pants. I knew I couldn't be good, but I might be a good candy maker. So imagine my treasuring when I learned about the vows of poverty and toil enjoined by these particular friars. I also crossed off my list the marshmallowites and the apple pieites, two other orders I was thinking of joining. I do like this quirky poem. Now, for some folks, and I think it's a bit sad really, poetry can be a very, very, very serious business. Maybe it is. But I find it seriously funny at times, some really good humour. Yeah, it stands out. I think of my friend Oliver's serious poems, but his humorous poems too, and often serious. There's humour even in the most serious. As I often like to say, life is far too serious a business to be taken too seriously. And I think it should be the same with poetry. Or at least it ought to be for the lot of a poet. Once they start taking themselves too seriously, they lose their magic, their mojo. Remember that. Now, this is a strange one. I am told that some people find me amusing. Now, on the whole, I'm pleased about this. In fact, I was recently asked to conduct a funeral for a friend, really, and they asked me because it was for her sister. They asked me because they knew that that I had a sense of humour, actually, and that I wouldn't be too po-faced like some clergy. I think that's what she was saying without quite saying that. She thought I would have a sense of humour about it, and even though it was a sad occasion, that was important too. For that is life, is it not? Now, maybe I am amusing. I don't know. But I do know that one thing I have never been any good at is telling jokes. I'm not a teller of jokes. In fact, I think while I was learning to be a minister, doing the ministerial training, I think if I learned anything, it was how to tell really bad, unfunny jokes. Or certainly that's the impression I got, I think. Interestingly, the Baptist students got to do stand-up comedy training. In fact, one of them, I think, got to the final of Britain's Got Talent. Alan, great guy. I suspect our training may have been the opposite of that, really. So, stop me, stop me, stop me. Stop me if you think you've heard this one before. Please stop me if you think you've heard this one before. A vicar, a priest, and a Unitarian minister were travelling together to an ecumenical lunch. They were trying to save petrol. They were trying to save money, really, save the planet, save the world. Well, sadly, on the way, though, they were involved in a fatal car crash. All three of them. They all sadly died. But there was some good news. It seems they all made it to heaven, even the Unitarian, which surprised them all. No, that's not the joke. Now, as they were going through orientation, they were all asked, when you are in your casket and friends, family, and congregants are mourning over you, what would you like to hear them say about you? Well, the vicar said, I would like to hear them say that I was a wonderful husband, a fine spiritual leader, and a great family man. The priest said, I would like to hear that I was a wonderful teacher and a servant of God who made a huge difference in people's lives. The Unitarian minister replied, I would like to hear them say, look, he's still moving. I did warn you I was not a great teller of jokes. But I think I'm blessed with a sense of humour, thank God. But I promise, no more bad jokes, unfunny jokes. Apologies. Apologies. I do try. Life is not easy, and it can often seem even more difficult at this time of year and this time of the history of our lives, I suspect. If I was to just sit here and think about the pain of existence, the pain of life, the pain of my loved ones, I probably would do nothing but weep. But there's more to life than just our sorrow. There is love, there is laughter, there is joy too, despite the very real pain and the very real suffering. I suspect that one of the greatest paradoxes of life is that it is vitally important to learn to take ourselves seriously enough to take ourselves lightly. It's really important to realize that we are not alone and that there is much love and so much joy to share if we just share it. You don't need to be alone with any of this. You really don't. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under the sun. And the seasons turn and pass and come again. This last couple of years, I feel that the line "a time to weep and a time to laugh" has taken on a deeper meaning. In recent weeks and months, as I have spent time with dear old friends and time with new ones too, I have wept more than I would normally. Far more, actually. And yet, by the same token, I've laughed more too. I suspect more of the barriers have come down. I know for a fact I've felt so much more of life, so much more alive. And I suspect I'm not alone in this. And I know something. I'm already seeing it. It will make me more resilient and enable me to serve in a better and more open manner. But one thing will remain the same. My jokes won't improve. So please, please, please forgive me. And stop me, stop me, stop me. Stop me if you think you've heard this one before. Apologies for that too. So I'm going to end this devotion with a recipe. There you go. A Recipe for Resilience by Margaret Weiss. A Recipe for Resilience by Margaret Weiss. This recipe has been tweaked over time, so just as necessary. Sometimes it yields more servings than anticipated. Sometimes it needs a bit more of this ingredient or that. It comes from generations who have gone before me, and I've added my own flavour along the way. So a recipe for resilience. 1 part courage, 2 parts tears of failure and doubt, 1 part deep listening, 1 part each of both silence and laughter, a dash of trust, a pinch of wonder, and a heaping scoop of naps and snacks. In a separate bowl, mix together family, friends, and those who challenge you to be your best self, those with whom you disagree. Add slowly to the larger pot. Add a bay leaf for, whatever it is bay leaves do, and let simmer for as long as you need, which is often longer than you realize or anticipate. Keep the heat at an even temperature, hot enough to cook throughout, but not so hot it burns the bottom. Can be served at room temperature, warm, or even cold if necessary. Serve alongside your favorite soft blanket, dog, cat, or other soft item. Make often. Share with others. Hold on to the leftovers. You'll need them after a long day that challenges your soul. A recipe for resilience. Amen. So we're coming to the end of this reflection, and just to bring it to an end, I'm going to offer a few words of blessing. You know we need to bless more, and we can all bless. We bless by giving our whole hearts to life. So let's begin today. Let's give our whole hearts to life. So some final words of blessing. Go now in peace, filled with the love that we have shared in this time together, overflowing with that spirit. Love for ourselves, love for one another, love for life, love for God. Look at the world with loving eyes and let those loving eyes look back at you. Truly look with a smile stretching right across your eyes. Do not look with tired hard eyes. Look instead through compassionate eyes. Be ready in any moment to disarm your own heart, and always live as if the realm of love had already begun. And may the blessings of God go with us all, and may they do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, and in all that we do. Let's see only love. Amen.